Hello and welcome to episode 113, titled Can You Hear Me, from a famous song that I love. My name is Dr. KK. I'm the Innovation Officer at Inago, and Tony is back from Italy and he's smiling at us and he'll tell us more about the vacation. But hi, Tony.
I can hear you, KK. Hi, everyone. I'm Tony O'Rourke, VP for Partnerships here at Nago. Welcome to the latest recording of PubShorts, episode 113. I can't believe we've already done 112 episodes, but there we are. Why is it called Can You Hear Me? Well, we like to name episodes after songs, and this one's no different. This one's named after a David Bowie song from Young Americans. Basically, this episode, we're looking about the challenges of AI writing in scientific publishing and highlighting the need for fair publishing practices to prioritize inclusivity and equity in scholarship.
Yep. All right. So with that, I think we are headed towards the first main story. Tony, are you ready? We have a double bill of scholarly kitchen posts. The first one is titled "From Language Barrier to AI Bias, the Non-Native Speaker's Dilemma in Scientific Publishing." Very sort of close to my heart. I believe
Yeah,
that it would also be yours.
yeah, yeah.
So it's written by the author is a research integrity consultant and has a PhD in microbiology. She's writing about the challenges faced by researchers who do not have English as their first language, which if suppose you've not thought about it, these are researchers primarily from the east of Asia, and I would even argue west of Asia, as well as let's say Africa, primarily, and you can also go to Latin America, but we are talking about, I think, primarily the East Asian contingent of researchers. So these researchers only spend more time writing, getting rejected more often for language related reasons, and even feel anxious while presenting their work, especially in conferences and everything. And obviously, this is unfair because good science cannot be overlooked because of, let's say, language related issues. We all know that, and that's why, Tony, we provide our services to help these researchers publish their research in English journals. So AI now could level the playing field and let non-native English speakers or researchers focus more on their research ideas. But obviously, AI is not perfect, and it can have its own biases because it is trained mostly on Western English data. So AI can also make mistakes, the author says, creating incorrect information and even flagging non-native speakers as writing as machine generated. We have heard that a lot. AI content detectors have false positivity. That's something that everybody knows, at least should know by now. And publishers mostly allow AI for editing. In the sense, if suppose you are submitting a paper to a publisher, as things stand now in early November 2025, what is clear is that you can use artificial intelligence and tools related to it, like Trinka AI, for editing and improving your grammar, but not maybe for many other things, like, for example, image generation, etc. So the author's suggestion, and I thought this was fascinating, Tony. I want you ask you your opinion. So the author suggests that AI could be the second reader. So once a researcher writes something, AI could be a second reader to check grammar and flow, and always keeping the original voice intact. So the role of the author or the researcher sort of shifts to auditing. We have talked about that, and also mentioned the author also mentioned that policies about AI need to be clear and fair, and also we need AI models that are diverse. I mean, trained on more diverse data, as well as reviewers and editors in journals, that is, or peer reviewers and editors of journals also need training to be sensitive to language and cultural differences and understand AI's limitations. So I thought it was a very well-rounded article covering a lot of things that we've been talking about. Mostly AI's sort of helping level the playing field from the point of view of English as second language researchers. So your thoughts on it, and especially that point, second reader point.
Yeah, I like the idea of the second reader point. I mean, authors can already use tools like ours, like Trinker AI, for example, as a writing assistant, just to check everything's actually in place, grammar, language flow, etc. Um, I suppose I still have a concern about not. I have a concern that there isn't some human in the loop, because what we're seeing in our own business is there has been a shift towards AI, as you'd imagine, with authors looking to use AI rather than using a company like ours in the first instance. But many of those authors are coming back because what they're saying is, yeah, it's good, but actually still not quite good enough.
Right.
And in certain key markets, we're seeing a real sort of return back, particularly for some of the more advanced services, which the AI tools, particularly when you're looking for editors that have an understanding of the subject area, still can't quite deal with as well as we'd expect or as it might. So yeah, a good article, but I still feel very strongly that it can play a role as a second reader, but authors should be very, very careful if they can use it to generate content.
Yeah, that I think the article also mentions, maybe my summary did not encapsulate it. The author is recommending that the researchers write their content and use AI as a second reader to sort of and help them sort of improve it. But obviously, the discernment still lies with the researcher or the author themselves. That's I think clear. Maybe I
suppose in a sense it's like, would an author use a spell checker on Word?
Yes,
they would, of course. This is just a step on from there.
Right. So we titled this episode because of nothing, in the sense that we had a title of a story that sort of resonates with us, and it's sort of like a very nice counterpoint or a addendum to the story that we just covered. This is titled "The Next Disruption is Listening in Every Language." It is also from the Scholarly Kitchen. So in this article, the author discusses challenges faced by researchers, particularly those from non-English speaking backgrounds. Again, sort of similar themes. So we are in the rapidly sort of evolving world of scholarly communication, and there are so many factors that affect the dynamics of it. So while the advancements in AI and open science promise fairness and speed, many researchers still feel the sort of pressure to catch up rather than to move forward, especially when English is now their first language. So the concerns such as the global research output being high, but many of it still remains inaccessible to language barriers, and we are talking primarily because most of the research, as Tony, you would agree that most of it is published in English, and many, let's say, non-native English speakers, we call them speakers, but they also readers and listeners, right? So they have challenges in consuming it, but AI is making things accessible. So we are talking about the East, primarily China here. The article argues, Tony, that the multilingualism should be a core component in open science, and again, a very good argument in my opinion, and it should not be an afterthought. And some of the examples cited are Scielo, you probably are familiar with it, and Scielo, America as positive examples. And the last thing that I think the author mentioned is that UNESCO's recommendation to support multilingual dissemination is a crucial step towards inclusivity in science. And finally, the author also calls for a shift from loud technologies to quiet listening, suggesting actions like incentivizing multilingual outputs and journals publishing bilingual abstracts to foster a sense of belonging in the scholarly community. Again, these two articles encapsulate why, Tony, you would probably agree with me that we do our business in terms of helping researchers from Japan, South Korea, China, Taiwan, etc. to provide them a platform so that they can, in the sense, to provide them with the support so that they can raise their voices and their research can be heard. So I thought it was a very sort of well-rounded take and covering both sides, AI's positives as well as potential negatives. Your thoughts on this article, Tony?
I suppose my thoughts on this article and on the principle generally is like, I don't think anyone wants to stop or restrict good research to be made available in the author's local language. I mean, it's absolutely critical that they get their ideas shared with their colleagues. But we can't deny, unfortunately, that we're living in a world where English is ironically the lingua franca of research. Use a French term or a Latin term to describe it. And whether we like it or not, if you want to communicate globally, you have to communicate in English. And we're not just talking about research papers here. We could be talking about books. We could be talking about conferences, conference proceedings, preprints, whatever you name it. And I realise also only 20% of the world's research economy is a native English speaker. That's also kind of an unfair shift, but it is a reality. And until that changes, maybe in 50 years' time, we'll all have to write papers in Chinese rather than English because that's become the modern language. But at the moment, English is the dominant language. But I would encourage measures by local governments or organisations to encourage maybe a parallel dissemination of content in English and in the native language. And you do see some of this as well with certain journals, particularly Spanish language journals, when they're publishing parallel English language versions of the same journal, and in Chinese as well.
Yep. I mean, I think this article, in the sense, at least abstracts can be bilingual. I mean, it can be multilingual for
Oh,
all you know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Abstracts, plain language
Yeah.
summaries,
Yeah. Yeah.
even the paper itself,
Yes.
maybe publishers should be thinking about what they can do to make local language versions more easily
Yeah.
available from
Yes.
within the version of record. But then what's the version of record?
Well, we can say that the language, let's say the primary language of publication, in our case, mostly it is English. That can be the version of the source of truth, and everything else is sort of related to it, linked to it. So that's probably the future that these two authors recommend, and I'm with them in the sense I'm from India, and English is my second language, even though I speak it. It is challenging for many researchers from India as well to sort of communicate, or to sort of make themselves feel like they are included in the wider research community. And AI is obviously a leveler, but at the same time, there are biases. That's what the
Yeah,
first article talked about.
and
Yeah.
listen, I've spent the last 10 years in this particular industry, in this particular sector, and I feel the pain. I understand exactly so the efforts that local authors, local English as a second language authors go through to get their papers published. They write perfectly good papers,
Mhm.
perfectly sound, really solid papers, but because the English is lacking,
Yep.
because they're at a disadvantage. So they've got there's an extra hurdle that they have to climb or get over just to be level on the playing field with everyone else.
And that's perfectly said. And so, Tony, we talked about AI being a leveler, but AI can also come with its own sort of, say, complications that researchers need to be aware of. And the first, so there are two articles related to it. This is a World View article published in Nature called "Teaching Machines to Doubt." So to sort of machines in the sense is artificial intelligence. You can equate that word to maybe ChatGPT. So how can you get ChatGPT to think and to doubt itself is basically what it is. So it highlights AI's potential to foster over reliance and reduce humans' or our own cognitive engagement, a critical issue, particularly in fields like healthcare and scientific research, where careful consideration and independent analysis are very, very important. And the implications to critical thinking from the author's point of view here are that AI's ability, Tony, to provide rapid answers and solutions can lead to a passive acceptance of information, reducing the user's inclination to question, analyze, or independently verify the output, thereby eroding crucial cognitive skills. I guess you would agree with that. The article also stresses that the urgent requirement for implementing safeguards that encourage or preserve the critical thought processes, even as we integrate AI into various systems. For example, in publisher systems as well as publishing solutions, and into various domains, especially those demanding rigorous intellectual engagement, like healthcare and scientific inquiry. So this is a sort of a broad article written from a healthcare point of view, and the themes discussed are particularly relevant to healthcare, and also can be expanded or extrapolated to the broader scientific community, where the stakes of uncritical acceptance of AI generated information could have significant consequences. So it's a
Absolutely,
yeah, it's a
absolutely.
so the article basically says, if you're using AI, make sure that your own human, the thing that makes you a sharp thinker, critical thinker, especially in the fields of science and healthcare, don't let AI diminish those skills, and keep yourself sort of in the loop, and be critical of AI's outputs. Even, I mean, I would even argue that way. So wonderful article. Any further thoughts on this, Tony?
I would further. I think it really reinforces the need for further critical thinking on the part, not just part of the machines training them down, but also on the part of the users. And that's got to be part of the research evaluation skills that need to be trained.
Mm-hmm.
At university, don't just assume you're given the fact that that fact is correct. Question everything.
Yep. And in a related nature story, I mean, lots of stuff from Nature about AI, and this one is a news story published last month, 24th of October, titled "AI Chatbots Are Sycophants." Researchers say that it's harming science. So it's sort of related to this. So we are
Yeah,
talking about AI chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini. They tend to agree, Tony, with users and give overly flattering feedback. We have exposed ourselves to it. You are very well aware of what
yeah,
happens
yeah,
if you chat,
yeah.
and this is called sycophancy. And researchers are finding this that this sort of attribute, that it's affecting how they use AI for science. It's I mean, the article mentions that researchers use AI for brainstorming, generating ideas, and analysis. So one study, Tony, found that 50% that AI models are 50% more sycophantic than humans. And so asking AI to check for correctness first, correct as in the sense, if you're chatting with an AI, if you ask, if you prompt it to check itself, it decreases this. And then you can put AI against AI to sort of check each other's ideas. That you some people call it a consensus, AI consensus as well. In healthcare, Tony, AI sycophancy is risky. LLMs have changed diagnoses based on new information, even if irrelevant, and have been easily manipulated to give medically illogical advice. So this is, remember, that's it's a sort of an opinion piece. And finally, the author mentions that user feedback can also encourage sycophancy by rating agreeable responses higher. So these are the risks of working with an AI, especially in science and healthcare. And I think these articles will help our listeners or anybody else to sort of ground themselves when they're using AI for research purposes. What do you
Yeah,
think?
and we are seeing Gen AI tools being trained to be less sycophantic. So I hope this is going to change
Yeah.
over the coming months and years.
Right. So, Tony, at this point, I'd like to sort of take a quick sort of detour from this. I mean, the responsible AI movement that Inago is sort of pioneering is also to do with this, isn't it? As in terms of educating researchers that they need to be critical about the AI output that they might
Yeah.
be improving. So, could you sort of detail some of the things that you've heard from publishers or researchers?
Well, just to remind people what the responsible AI movement is, the responsible AI movement is about trying to establish best practice for research communication. In terms of where AI is used, how AI is used, how you disclose the use of AI. How you should be questioning. Not being cynical necessarily, but questioning the outputs that you're getting from AI, and trying to establish practices not just among publishers, but also among the research, and perhaps more importantly, among the research community. And we're seeing this being increasingly adopted,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in Asia, where there is in East Asia, particularly, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
where there is a growing use and a growing sort of mistrust, I suppose, about certain aspects of AI. There is absolutely a use for AI, but there needs to be structures, there needs to be standards, there needs to be protocols in terms of how AI should be used intelligently and properly.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do with the responsible AI movement is to create that. Well, not just to create the standard, but to encourage the use of standards or the generation of standards in the use of AI. And we're seeing it particularly with publishers changing for example, some of their rules around disclosure. And even 6 months ago,
Yep.
a lot of publishers were just saying, just tell us you're using AI, and
Yep.
that's it when you're submitting a paper. Now you're seeing much more granularity
Yep.
in terms of, don't just tell us that you're using it, tell us where you're using it, how you're using it. When you're submitting your paper, we all want to understand how much of this is you and how much of this is
Right.
AI.
And Tony, where can people find more about responsible AI movement?
Oh, it's easy. Just search responsible AI movement in Argo, and you'll be taken directly to that page. Just Google or Baidu, whatever you're going to do. You'll find that on the inargo.com website.
Right. So we've talked about the potential consequences, negative consequences of AI. Now let's hear something positive about AI. So this is another news article from Nature titled "The AI Method." This AI method, rather, could turbocharge the hunt for new medicines. So, we are talking about an AI method that uses deep learning to analyze gene expression data. Unfortunately, the article is behind the paywall, so I am reading my notes. It bypasses the need for traditional and time-consuming drug screening, and the model is called Drug Reflector and was trained on data from thousands of compounds and cell types, and it has shown to be significantly more effective than traditional screening methods. And this technology, Tony, could dramatically reduce labor and cost involved in finding new medicines. And while promising, the current model is limited to compounds in the training set. So now that's a caveat. But at the same time, I mean, these are the kind of positive uses of AI that we want to see more and more, especially in healthcare, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm having a bit of a deja vu moment here because we spoke about similar articles like this in
Yeah.
previous episodes, but the really positive use of AI.
Yeah.
With the author saying it could turbocharge, I think it already is to a certain extent. There are already examples of where
Mm-hmm.
AI is being used, for example, for drug discovery.
Right. So if you haven't figured this out, this episode is themed after AI. So we cannot escape the news that is coming from the big AI companies. And the first one is the Microsoft response to the Atlas browser that OpenAI launched. So this title: 2 days after OpenAI's Atlas, Microsoft relaunches a nearly identical browser. So the relaunch we are talking about is the Copilot mode in Microsoft Edge. Tony, do you use Microsoft Edge at all?
I
Yeah.
do, increasingly, in fact.
Yeah, yeah. So this Copilot mode was officially launched in July with basic features. The recent update adds actions for tasks like filling and journeys for tab analysis. So in the sense, you can let the browser itself sort of tell you what you've been doing and how you can navigate, etc. The visual design of the Microsoft Copilot mode is very similar to OpenAI's Atlas, and that is not surprising because they are sort of partners as well as competitors in the same field. And the main difference for users will be that the underlying AI models used. So if Microsoft Edge's Copilot mode will use a different AI model compared to the Atlas browser. So we have many sort of competitors now. We already kind of know about Comet, which I think many of my friends at work have been using, and they're very happy with it. The Comet is by Perplexity. Atlas has been in our lives for maybe about 2 weeks now. Any thoughts on that? Have you used any of these browsers, Tony?
No, I was just about to ask you the same thing. I've not used Atlas yet. I'm going to give it, of course, like everyone, I'm curious to see how it works. Have you used Atlas at all?
I haven't used Atlas, and there's a reason why, and I probably will cover it. But I've used Comet, and it's pretty good. I mean, if you are a fan of Perplexity and if you want to sort of live in that environment, it is great. I think Atlas could be the best in terms of mass use cases, in terms of getting things done, etc. So I still believe that there's a huge push, and I do not know, Tony, if you're aware that OpenAI is offering its, I think, one of the lower subscription models free of cost to India, all Indians, for 1 year, starting I think
Well,
November 1st. So that is also related to the browser pitch. So basically, a bunch of users, they're hoping that users from Chrome will be coming to Atlas. So that's what everybody's talking about. It's a big thing.
interesting.
Yeah, but so we'll take a look at it next year, maybe how things are in the browser war. So I mentioned,
Okay.
Tony, that there's a reason why I'm a little skeptical. First of all, I'm a big Firefox fan. So whatever screens that I've ever shared on PubShorts is through Firefox, and there's a reason for that. It's known as the best security-oriented browser. Okay, not from a Safari, I mean Apple point of view. It's in general, as in a broad spectrum, safe browser and very customizable. So the interesting thing is that Atlas's security is being discussed by the chief information security officer at OpenAI, and basically this is the next thread, and I'm not logged in, but I'll read some of the key things. So a significant risk in Atlas, the CISO says, is a prompt injection where malicious instructions trick the agent, and attackers might try to bias opinions or steal private data and credentials through this. So OpenAI CISO is talking about it, and they're trying to fix it. To combat this, extensive testing, new training techniques, and safety measures are already in place in Atlas, and rapid response systems are used to identify and block these attacks. So there are so many different things. For example, Atlas has a logged out mode for actions without credentials, so it can sort of work in the background and do things for you when you don't have payments and stuff like that. So the logged in mode is advised with well scoped actions and trusted sites. So basically, if you want to avoid security threats, it is better to sort of use only the logged in mode. And there's also a watch mode for sensitive sites, alerting users and requiring the tab to be active. So there are these things. So I just wanted to bring this to the attention that OpenAI is openly sort of admitting that there are threats, potential threats to these, and they are addressing this, which is again, it seems that they're pivoting their shift from ChatGPT to this browser, and it's very interesting to see. I think we are all probably going to be sort of in a world 1 year from now where we won't think twice before we choose Atlas or something, because it just gets things done for you. So your thoughts on it after reading this post?
Um, I've not yet used Atlas.
Mm.
I intend to use Atlas. I'm curious to see whether it does take still a march. I'm, knowing how successful OpenAI have been with introducing some of these programs, I think this is going to really disrupt the market.
All right. All right. So, Tony, are you ready for the quick hits? There are many this
Yeah,
afternoon.
let's be quick.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the hint. So the first one, Microsoft hopes Miko succeeds where Clippy fail as tech companies warily
Oh my
imbue.
God, Clippy's come back.
No, Miko is come back. I believe this is Miko. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it yet. Miko, which
I know people who miss Clippy.
are they in mental institutions, Tony?
That's the most politically incorrect thing you've ever said, KK.
Miko, which will embody its co-pilot virtual assistant, basically Clippy replacement. It is designed, Tony, to be friendly, adaptable, and changing its appearance based on user interactions. And Tony, there's a flag for me. There's a red flag for me. The company is also focusing on Miko's role in education
Mm.
with features to help students learn. So I first, when I saw this, I thought it felt like what I would see, on a Disney Channel or something like that. And my niece, when she was very little, she was totally attracted to this. I wonder if this can. I mean, I have both positives and negatives for this. I don't know what Miko might do in the sense whether it will be beneficial for young kids. What are your thoughts? Are you concerned?
Well, firstly, before we talk about Miko itself, I wonder if as it's come from Microsoft, whether it's Myco.
Interesting. I haven't looked up the
Well,
pronunciation.
let's get the branding in as early as possible. And it almost sounds like Microsoft, Micro. Listen, I was never a big fan of Clippy. I'd like to see this in action before I make any comments, but it is kind of inevitable that someone like Microsoft is going to want to develop a much more user-friendly, or at least from appearance sake, assistant as part of its browser. So no, it doesn't surprise me. I was never a fan of those assisted tools then.
Yep.
I doubt I will be now, but hey, wait and see.
We have. Oh, I mean, everybody will be waiting with bated breath to see your review. I mean, hear your review, Tony, about.
As I would, that would surprise everyone, including me.
All right, quickly. Anthropic has let us all know. This is something that flew under my radar. That's why I'm talking about it. But Anthropic is introducing a new memory feature for its AI assistant. So, if at all you're wondering what this is, it's more like the projects feature. Or remembering all the chats that you've had with its feature, that kind of a thing. So you can ask sort of like Claude, just like how you could with ChatGPT, whether it remembers that, for Tony, do you remember? So if you are the AI, I would ask you, do you remember something that we worked on 6 months ago? I would like to rework on it, and it'll just simply start responding to. So that's all. It is something that I did not cover when it came out. So it was related to something else that came out recently.
And I suppose it's a flaw in my own knowledge to assume that it didn't already do that. The fact that if you're going to talk to it 6 months later or 3 months later or whatever, it hasn't stored that previous engagement. Particularly if you've got a pro model,
yeah, I mean,
you'd expect it to have some kind of retention.
Yeah, there are obviously settings within all these browsers where you can toggle these on and off. But this is at the total, like, whatever chats that you've had, you can sort of ask Claude if it remembers, and that is a setting that they have recently enabled.
Interesting.
Yeah. Moving on, Elsevier Science Direct AI wins the best generative AI solution at the Cody Award. So this award recognizes the innovative AI tool developed for researchers. And Science Direct AI, for those who do not know, helps researchers quickly find, cite, compare, and explore trusted research. So any thoughts on it? Any quick thoughts on it, Tony?
No, listen, I have a great deal of time for Elsevier. They've developed some absolutely world-class workflows and world-class tools. This Science Direct AI is just one of a number. I mean, look at things like Clinical Key and some of their engineering workflows. They're absolutely superb. Obviously not cheap services to buy, but if you're serious about research in that space, you kind of have to have them.
Right. So moving on to the next one, but before that, I'll ask you, Tony, when is your next performance appraisal?
That's a bit personal. It's not. It's in a while.
It's in a while.
It's in a while. It's not coming up imminently.
Okay. And do you plan to use AI to write your performance appraisal at all?
Who's to say I don't already?
Okay, great. Because if you were working at JP Morgan, you could officially use AI to write your performance review. So this is a big bank, and that's the whole point. I mean, how the world is shifting in terms of banks offering their own sort of custom version of what I understand ChatGPT to its employees to write their review. So it's just basically it's a first draft that the bank is asking its employees to write, and obviously they are responsible for it. And just wanted to sort of highlight the societal trend, in the wider world, how AI is affecting our workflows. And finally, Tony, you and I are musicians. Should we be threatened by OpenAI because OpenAI is working on a AI music generation tool? I do not know if you feel threatened, but I do feel threatened because if you're writing original music, if OpenAI, considering how well it has built ChatGPT, and now I think it'll take over the world with Atlas, this could put a lot of musicians out of their employment. What do you think?
I don't know. I still think there is going to be a market for creativity, for unique work. I suppose if I was a professional musician, and my income was exclusively from composing new music, I might feel threatened.
Yeah.
But if I'm as a casual musician like I am,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I see this no different than a piano player being threatened by the introduction of a synthesizer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to have all those new sounds brought in, you still have to harness and master that machine.
Yeah.
I think maybe what the musicians need to learn, what they need to understand in terms of embracing these technologies, will change.
Yeah. And a quick thing from this article, I mean, I should have probably said this. It is seemingly mostly intended to add music as background for videos that OpenAI sort
Oh
of can
well, now
generate.
that's yeah. I think again, if I was a composer of film scores, for example,
Mm.
I would feel concerned. You know,
Yeah.
for example, or incidental music, because if you can create music that's copyright free, that has no performance rights against, or basically, you know, you're creating that and you're assigning that
Mm.
fee to that piece of music, then yeah, you're taking a human out of the loop.
And one last quick trivia: the Juilliard School, students from it were used to or were behind this project. And Tony, I once considered, I mean, this was a long, long time ago, to graduate from the Juilliard as after completing my medical education, because I thought I wanted to graduate. But the music is not why people are here, right, Tony? They want to know about your vacation in
I think
Italy.
many people are here because of music, but yeah,
So yeah, so tell everyone about what how your vacation was in Italy and what you did and everything.
yeah. Well, so you would never guess by my surname, but I'm actually half Italian. My mother was Italian, and this year would have been her 100th birthday. So that, together with another important family birthday, we decided as a family to go to Rome
Hmm.
for just under a week. So we weren't there super long time, but it was enough. And then also took the opportunity to visit my family's ancestral kind of village,
Hmm.
the home where my mother came from. So I've been there a few times, but my sister hadn't been there at all since the late 70s, and her family hadn't been there at all ever. So it's kind of an introduction, an eye opener as to, you know, where the background, the roots of our family.
And how
And
was
we
this?
had a wonderful time. The
Yeah.
food, the pasta, I have the most fantastic pasta. I haven't dared weigh myself since I got back. But we did a lot of walking. We were doing like 30,000 steps every day. So it was
Wonderful,
fantastic.
wonderful. All right, Sony, quickly, how can listeners listen to all the 112 episodes that we have published so far?
Yeah, sure. So it's very simple. Just go over to our YouTube playlist, search for Inago Pub Shorts, and you'll see all previous 112 episodes. Or we encourage you to, you know, follow Pub Shorts, so you'll be updated with any new episodes that come up.
Yeah.
Send us any comments in the either in the comment section, or you contact us directly here at Inago. I'm at tonio@inago.com.
Right.
Yeah, but we really look forward to hearing from you about ideas and suggestions for future
Yeah, and
episodes.
we're thankful for your sort of listenership. I mean, I mean, viewership, I suppose. I mean, thank you for joining us and listening to us and giving us the feedback that you've given so far, and we truly appreciate it. And with that, Tony, I bring us to the end of episode 113. Can you hear me? And until the next episode, this is Tony and KK signing off. Bye, Tony.
See you at the next one.
Bye bye.